Hey, this is Kevin Bowen, and you are listening to my podcast called Kevin's Corner. Subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher for the best coverage of the Colts and Pacers. It is a big one at Lucas Oil Stadium on Sunday afternoon. The Colts and the Cowboys. Not very often you see America's team. Do they still call them that, Joey?
Yes.
America's team. They have training camp in California, and they are seen all over probably the world, actually, to be honest with you. They will be inside of Lucas Oil Stadium the first time they've been here in 8 years. That's what happens when you play NFC teams, and it's a pretty enticing matchup. 8-5 Cowboys, 7-6 Colts. You played the team with the longest winning streak in the NFL last week in the Texans, and now you face the team that currently has the longest winning streak in the NFL and the Cowboys. So a fun one at Lucas Oil Stadium on Sunday afternoon. That voice you heard earlier was Joey Molinaro. I am Kevin Bowen. Joey, good to have you back.
Yes. Glad to be back. Sorry about earlier this week.
No, you're good. Glad to hear that you're doing better, and you're listening to another edition of Kevin's Corner, sponsored by Great Clips. Appreciate our friends at Great Clips for putting a little sponsor to Kevin's Corner here in the 2018 season, and it's been a really entertaining season, Joey, and it's crazy to sit here and think last week you feel like, gosh, back's against the wall, you got to win. And now, and this is something I really want to get into later in the podcast, the Colts have like a 25-30% chance when you look at the numbers and the analytics and all that. If they win out, which I know is a big if, they will be playing postseason football. Like, they don't need a lot of help. The biggest question is, can you win out? It's not, are those teams going to do enough to help you get into the playoffs? With, unfortunately, your Steelers and Baltimore losing last week, those are huge results. So this is a playoff mindset for the Colts full bore. I know Frank Reich doesn't want to take that, but you win against the Cowboys, you beat the Giants, and you go down to Nashville Week 17 and you win, we're going to be podcasting the month of January, and we're not going to be talking about the draft or free agency just yet.
Unfortunately for a lot of listeners. I know they want them in the playoffs, but they want those draft questions to come in. Yeah.
We even had a few on Tuesday.
Right.
Someone's at mock draft, Jonah Williams, and I get it. The draft is, you and I love the draft.
Yes.
I mean, we can't wait to talk about Saquon Barkley next week because it feels like we haven't talked about him since we broke down his game for 3 or 4 months. But let's be patient. We got months to talk about it, and right now you're talking about a team that's in the playoff hunt, and I don't think I personally, and I probably speak for a lot of people, realistically thought that was going to be here on December 13th.
Yep, we'll take it. Haven't had it for a few years, so let's
Exactly.
get into the playoff picture. We're going to start just like every Thursday's podcast, KB. Stuff you learned from this week. It's been a packed week. And let's start with Matt Eberflus. He's been a big topic of discussion. Was on JMV this week. Him and Frank Reich's relationship.
Yeah, how about that? He goes on JMV. Adam Schefter had him on his podcast.
Wow.
You don't usually see coordinators make rounds in the media like that. And I think that's obviously a credit to the type of season that the Colts defense is having. And it got me thinking this week. I was talking to Molly Carnes, one of our salespeople up on the 6th floor, who always is providing good little insight. And she got my brain thinking back to the assistants that were hired under Ballard and McDaniels. And I guess probably more so they were Ballard hires, especially Eberflus, because he really loved the Rod Marinelli background. Rod Marinelli, the longtime defensive coordinator in the league, and is down in Dallas, who Eberflus coached under, and was in Chicago with Ballard back when Ballard was a scout for the Bears. So that connection was there. Ballard makes the hire. I guess McDaniels signs off on those hires. I don't know 100% how all of that went down. But you think back to each of those three guys. Matt Eberflus, defensive coordinator. Dave DeGuglielmo on the offensive line.
Nice.
Our guy, Googe. And Mike Fair on the defensive line. Those three units have played so solid and have probably exceeded a bit of expectations, certainly. And Yes, the O-line you invested a lot of resources in, and the D-line you drafted some guys high, but I just did not think that this defense will be playing at this high of a level. And, credit Frank Reich. When he takes this job, he doesn't know Eberflus. And you got to think, at Frank Reich's age, you're probably going to have one shot at being a head coach in the NFL. And in my opinion, if I'm taking that job and the Colts are backed into a corner, I get that Chris Ballard wants to be a man of his word and wants to keep these guys in the building. But if I'm Frank Reich, I'm thinking to myself, man, I would really like my guys. And he had really no prior relationship, knew little of Eberflus. Yeah, they're in the same division for 2 years, but, that's a linebackers coach. Their paths had not crossed over. Reich has always been a professional coach since he joined the Colts back in the mid-2000s, whereas you got Eberflus, who had been at Toledo and Missouri and then was, I think, Cleveland before he went to Dallas. And I just credit Eberflus for adapting a little bit schematically, because that was always my biggest gripe throughout the season. I don't think the personnel is top 15, top 10 defense good. It's not, really. You're having guys play out of their norm, and that's credit to the coordinator. And they've bought into this scheme that's been preached on effort and all of that. And I think in the past weeks, and something I touched on Tuesday, Joey, I thought Eberflus did a really nice job game plan-wise against Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, and Lamar Miller. You took away their best players, and that didn't happen in week 4, and I think it's been a staple of the Colts that hasn't happened enough in recent years. Of course, Eberflus isn't involved in that, but that's what really, really stood out to me, and I just felt like it was going to take a year or two for the personnel to improve and therefore to cover up my issues with the scheme. But Eberflus on Sunday showed we can do a little bit more press man. We can bring some blitzes that might be a little bit more exotic than what the Colts have been known for through about the first half of the season. So, again, first-year head coach, first-year offensive coordinator, first-year defensive coordinator, and special teams coordinator. That staff was really kind of a melting pot of a group put together, and more times than not this year, they've outcoached their opposition. So credit to Eberflus and credit to Reich for, being open to that and giving a guy, that's your defense, Matt Eberflus. This isn't you hiring Wade Phillips like Sean McVay does, who's a longtime coordinator, and you feel good about it. No. Frank Reich is trusting a first-year defensive coordinator, and that says a lot.
It reminds me of, have you ever seen Armageddon?
Yeah.
Reminds me of kind of like one of those scenes in a movie where a guy's introducing his crew.
Yeah.
The kind of the ins and outs. That's what Chris Ballard's doing to Frank Reich when he's bringing him through the building, and Reich's like, oh, okay, I guess I got to work with it.
Exactly. Yeah. I said yes, so I guess these are my coaches. And think about how pivotal of positions. This wasn't, hey, Frank, here's your assistant strength coach.
Yeah.
Here's your video coordinator. Here's your nutritionist. No, this is your offensive line coach for the position group that's been scrutinized like none other for the past X amount of years. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, here's your defensive coordinator. Right. You know nothing about defense. Obviously, Frank Reich knows something about defense, but you get what I'm saying.
Not your side of the ball.
Right, exactly. Here's your first-year defensive coordinator, and here's your defensive line coach who comes from the college ranks. Frank Reich just rolls with the punches big time, and so I touched on a lot on Tuesday, Joey, but I just wanted to reiterate again, thinking more back to it, and again, thanks to Molly for pointing that out to me, but it's pretty impressive how those 3 coaches specifically have gotten their sides of the ball, their groups, to play so well.
You posted an article on 1070thefan.com on Thursday asking the question, who should make the Pro Bowl? The team gets announced next week.
Correct.
Right? And they've been smacking us over the head with the voting for the guys. But you know what? There's a lot of guys that can make a case to be on that team.
There is. I mean, remember this time last year, Joey, I don't think we made a case for anybody to be a Pro Bowler.
For Sean Melvin and Adam Vinatieri or something.
Melvin, a Doyle, maybe.
Yeah.
But no one got voted in right away. Doyle and Hilton ended up going as alternates. But that should not and will not happen next Tuesday when teams are announced. I think the Colts will have a couple of Pro Bowlers at least. And I wanted to break down who I would consider locks and who I would consider could go either way. Fan voting actually ends tonight. So by the time people listen to this, as always, we're taping this on Thursday afternoon. Fan voting will be over. And you're right, Joey. The Colts are putting the full court press because their fan voting has not been very strong, to be honest with you. Several teams out there, teams that aren't even, really winning this year, like the Panthers and the Browns and 49ers, but that's just
a bummer.
Yeah, that's just passionate fan bases there. So before I get into all this, one thing I want to remind fans about, the Pro Bowl is really a glorified popularity contest.
Right.
Like, you have to make a name for yourself. And it's 1/3 fan voting, 1/3 coach voting, 1/3 player voting. That's the breakdown. And in fan voting, at last check, here are a few names for the Colts and where they were in fan voting. Fan voting, obviously, the only one that's made public. Luck was 8th among quarterbacks, which is LOL.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Ebron, 4th among tight ends. Okay. Quentin Nelson, 3rd among guards. Okay. And Darius Leonard, 5th. Like, Andrew Luck, 8th? People are still, if you were going to make an MVP ballot, Andrew Luck would be probably like in the 5th range right now on the MVP ballot. Yet he's 8th in fan voting. So again, this is a popularity contest when it comes to fan voting, which is 1/3 of it. So that's something just to remind yourself about when you see these names announced next Tuesday. But I got 3 locks, okay? I think Nelson's a lock. Again, part of being a Pro Bowler is having hype around your name. There are highlight tapes of Quentin Nelson that go viral each week. Like,
just watch Brian Baldinger's breakdowns.
Baldy is just nothing gets Baldy more excited on a Monday morning.
Swear.
Than Quentin Nelson. Yeah, he doesn't need anything to get himself excited. So, Nelson, to me, has he been perfect Hall of Fame? No, but he's been good enough to be a Pro Bowler. And there's 3 spots that go to Pro Bowl guards. And remember, it's back to AFC, NFC. I think for a couple of years there, we just had.
I choose to forget about it.
Yeah.
It was really weird.
Watching the Pro Bowl is a whole other story. But anyways, I got Nelson as a lock, and I've got Eric Ebron. Most years you would say Travis Kelce, Rob Gronkowski, and let's move on. But Gronk has only played in 10 games. I think he only has 3 touchdowns, and he can't tackle. We found that out last Sunday. Travis Kelce's had a really good year. I know there's been a little bit of push for Jared Cook with the Oakland Raiders. I feel like that's probably us and Jack Doyle last year. Like, somebody on a bad team has got to do something. But Ebron deserves it, obviously. 12 touchdown catches for him, and he should be a Pro Bowler. And then lastly, Leonard. Similar to Nelson, for a rookie to create hype at a position that's a little bit under the radar, you got to make the impactful plays, and I think Leonard has done that. The linebacker group in the AFC is not as strong as maybe quarterback or receiver that we'll get into here a little bit later. But Darius Leonard has the resume. So those are my locks, Joey. Nelson, Ebron, Leonard. Now I've got 4 that I could go either way on. A couple of them probably could go either way on strictly performance. And then the others, I think it's more so just you're at a loaded position group. And I've seen Pro Bowl voting each year. I understand how this process operates. And usually it does not award the 3 or 4 deserving players at that position. So let's go in alphabetical order. I'll start with the left tackle, Anthony Costanzo. It would not shock me at all, Joey, if the Colts end up with 2 Pro Bowl linemen, which is just crazy to even say, but I think they will at some point. I have a feeling, though, it's probably going to have to be with the alternate route. Costanzo missing the first 5 games probably hurts him, but I think he should receive more attention just because the overall chatter this year about the Colts and their improved offensive line play. If we were taping this a month ago, I probably would have Ryan Kelly on this list, but injuries have hurt him. So I think Costanzo, alternate route down the road for him going into the Pro Bowl. Second, I've got T.Y. Hilton. what will hurt Hilton and what will hurt Andrew Luck, mainly Hilton, he's played his best football here recently. Well, fan voting's pretty much done. It's like the Heisman. I remember they said that 10% of the Heisman votes were casted before championship weekend. Well, Kyler Murray and Tua Tagovailoa are playing another game. Are we just going to forget about that game?
Right.
Like, I have a feeling coach and player voting, they don't want to wait until Monday as they're getting ready to prepare for a critical playoff game. No, they're telling their PR person, you handle this. And they aren't waiting for, these critical games. So what really hurt Hilton is just the receiver group in the AFC. 4 receivers go. Tyreek Hill, DeAndre Hopkins, and Antonio Brown have got to be locks. I would guess Keenan Allen is the 4th. Your guy, Juju.
Can make a case.
Could definitely make a case. I mean, you got to look at numbers, too. I know Hilton's had a great recent stretch. I posted something on 1070thefan.com on Wednesday morning. He's the most consistent receiver in the NFL right now over the last 5 weeks. That includes Amari Cooper. So I think Hilton maybe alternate route might be his best case scenario. Now, he's got name recognition. He's made 4 straight Pro Bowls. That will help him, unlike it will help the Ebrons and the Nelsons and the Leonards. But I just think the quieter months, and I put quieter in quotes, but the quieter months of September and October might hurt him a little bit. Moving on to Andrew Luck. And I talked about it earlier. He's 8th in fan voting. I think that was 5th among AFC quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes is a lock. Phil Rivers. I wish he'd go by Phil.
Yeah, he got that weird 1L name. There's not the double L.
Philip Dorsett was 2 L's. It's a good call. Good. I've got was 1 L here written down. That's good by me. I'm starting him in fantasy. I'm in the semis this week. Him or Newton.
Man, they've been falling off a cliff, haven't they?
So I was torn on this. Rivers tonight as I feel like if people listen to this on Friday and Rivers just lays an egg, I'm going to sound like an idiot. I always bring up fantasy. Rivers against the Chiefs, right? That's going to be a shootout.
He plays well there. He knows that, he's not going to be intimidated to go in there.
Just give me a shootout.
Yeah.
Like 40-30, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Newton Monday night. I know they're playing the Saints. That'll probably be a shootout. I just can't trust Cam.
Is that in Carolina?
I think so.
Okay.
And Cam was talking big time Thursday. But anyways, Mahomes, Rivers. I know Tom Brady hasn't had a Tom Brady year, but again, Tom Brady is the name. So you got to think he will go. And I'm not even including Roethlisberger, who is 2nd in the league in passing.
Yep.
And Deshaun Watson, he's the one that had the momentum when this voting was really going on. 9 straight wins, all of that. The Texans fan base, is obviously in a big market. So I could see Luck getting in on Tuesday, but I just want to offer a little bit of warning. Like, don't be stunned if he's not. Now, Andrew Luck has played really, really good football. But you start 1-5, I just don't know if you had that same momentum like you saw with Rivers and Mahomes especially,
right.
And then Brady and Roethlisberger. That's just name recognition. So that's where we're at with Luck. And then lastly, the guy who I think is probably the most deserving player on the Colts is Rigoberto Sanchez. Rigo. He leads the AFC in net punting average. That includes a block kick. That wasn't his fault. Now, name recognition is certainly not in the favor of Rigo.
Colts marketing. Let's go. Let's get it up. Social media. Come on. You gotta go full bore with Rigo. I know it's only his 2nd year in the league, but he's a guy that I think deserves to be in there. So we'll see. I got 3 locks, 4 guys I'm putting in the maybe category. I think when it's all said and done, the Colts will have around 5 Pro Bowlers. And to think at the start of the year, probably would have laughed at that, right?
Right. And some of those names. I mean, who would have thought that Eric Ebron and Darius Leonard I'd have in lock categories as Pro Bowlers?
Not me.
No.
Definitely.
Not I.
A little bit of maybe surprising news. I don't know. I guess I was kind of surprised. Maybe you weren't. But Eric Swoop getting cut and then signing with the Saints.
Yeah. I think it is surprising, Joey, just because the name recognition is there. And he caught 3 touchdowns earlier this season. And you just had the injury with Doyle and then the Mo Alley Cox injury. So I get why there is surprise. I was not because I obviously looked into that Jacksonville game and then looked back at that Houston game, and that guy just was not on the field very much. He played 23 snaps out of 143 the last 2 weeks. His only catch, the last play of the Jacksonville game. That crazy play.
Not a great one to go out on.
Yeah, exactly. He had the one target on Sunday and bobbled that ball near the sideline that ended up being ruled incomplete. So I just don't think physically, he wasn't waived injured, Joey, but I just don't think he was all the way back. He missed over a month with that knee injury. He had the 3 touchdowns in a row. I think it was New England, or maybe even started in the Houston game. Houston, New England, Buffalo, or I think New England, Jets, Buffalo, now I think about it. Suffers the injury on his touchdown against Buffalo, a knee injury, and then misses over a month. And when I saw the news, obviously the first thinking is, well, Allie Cox, good to go. And we tape this Thursday afternoon, and Mo Alley's practiced 3 days this week, or 2 days this week, the first 2 practices. He looks to be back, and the Colts have had a luxury all season long of carrying 4 and even 5 tight ends. So carrying 3 is that's what they're carrying right now. Ebron, Hewitt, and Allie Cox. That should not be. That isn't like a number like you need to add to. And as we tape this, the Colts still have an open roster spot. We'll see if that is Jalen Collins or what the Colts end up doing. Probably tomorrow after practice when they make that move. I would think it's an internal move. To me, you would want an outside guy in your building to practice this week. But yeah, I was not stunned. Remember, Chris Ballard has ties to Mo Alley Cox, not Eric Swope. And I just felt like Swope reached his ceiling a bit. And I think injuries played into that. I know a few people have chimed in on Twitter. You won't find 3 or 4 better guys than Eric Swope in that locker room. Tremendous and great for him for finding a home in New Orleans. I mean, yeah, that's not a bad situation to walk into. For the final few games.
You're going to be getting the ball down there.
Exactly. Yeah, Drew Brees is going to pepper you down there. I just thought Allie Cox had a little bit of a higher ceiling, Joey. And I know we touched on this when the Jack Doyle injury news happened. This staff loves Mo Alley Cox in being the mini hybrid inline blocker pass catcher, like a Doyle. He's not anywhere near the level blocker that Doyle is, but they felt like he was a bit of a mix of Ebron and Hewitt. He can be the inline guy, but he can also catch the ball.
Right.
And he was playing more than Ebron, actually, before he was hurt. So that happened Tuesday after we taped the podcast, Joey, so I just wanted to double back on that and touch on what I thought about Eric Swope.
What's the news on Ryan Kelly for this weekend?
Looks good. Practice Wednesday, Thursday. Sounds like he'll wear a brace on that sprained MCL and play on Sunday. He was a guy that thought originally it'd be about 3 to 4 week timetable with this injury, and he ended up missing 3 games. Now, the injury situation on the offensive line is not all great. It sounds like Kelly, yes, should give it a go, but it sounds like no Mark Glowinski this week, your starter at right guard. Glowinski injured his ankle, played through it for a while against the Texans, and then left late in the third quarter. He left on the play before the Pascal touchdown. It was a great play in the pocket by Luck where he found Hilton. That was his last play of the game. It was down the left sideline where Hilton catches that ball. So Glowinski out. I am thinking it's Joe Haig. Excuse me there. Got choked up thinking Joe Haig's back in the lineup. I think it's Joe Haig at right guard over Josh Andrews. Haig has had 8 career starts at right guard, so he's been there. He's been in the lineup for you before. I just don't think they wanted to, in-game last week, put Haig at right guard because they liked that jumbo tight end package that they were using Haig with. So they said, okay, in a pinch, let's put Andrews in there. But now with the Glowinski injury, if it's going to be a couple weeks, now they can prepare Haig throughout a full week of practice. And I think it'll be Joe Haig at right guard. And I guess at Friday's practice, we'll watch and make sure T.Y. Hilton is good to go. He didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday, just like last week. But a new injury this week. It's the ankle that's bothering him. He did injure that ankle on the 60-yard touchdown or 60-yard chunk play to set up the Marlon Mack touchdown against the Texans. So I think Hilton will be good to go, but it's another injury for him to play through this year. Shoulder, hamstring, and now an ankle.
You mentioned off the top of the show, and this is going to be the biggest thing going into this weekend, Kevin, is that the playoffs are near and they're realistic for the Colts.
They are. Playoff scenarios really make my head hurt, Joey.
A lot of different options when you're one of the wild card tiebreaker teams. Deal.
Now you probably don't have to deal with it too much because your Steelers got a tie, which means they're kind of the outlier.
Right. For Pittsburgh, it's plain simple. Win 2 out of 3, and then you're in. Lose 2 out of 3, you're out. Vice versa. But don't have to worry about that too much.
Yeah, with the Colts at 7-6, it's not great. There's a lot of 7-6 teams around there, and again, it makes my head hurt. But I'll try to put it in simplest terms.
Real quick, are we getting Joe Buck and Troy Aikman this weekend?
I think it's Charles Davis and Burkhead.
They're gonna go do Packers at Bears, aren't they?
Is that that
Buck and
right.
Aikman.
Is that the 425er?
That's at 1.
Oh, that's at 1.
The 4:05 Fox game is Seahawks 49ers.
Oh gosh.
So because you got those 2 games on Saturday, then you got full 1 o'clock, only 2.
Oh, yeah, I forgot we got Saturday
4 o'clock
football now.
Yeah, and then Sunday night. But I couldn't tell if they're gonna do Packers at Bears. I figured playoffs, Andrew Luck, Cowboys.
Yeah,
that's Buck and Aikman.
I mean,
all over
honestly, with this Carson Wentz injury news, I bet they're pissed they didn't flex this game.
True. Yeah.
But I don't know if you can flex from 1 o'clock all the way to 8. I think you might have to go from 1 to 4:30.
Can we look up who? I'll try to look up.
I got it for you.
Okay.
We got Kevin Barkhard. God, I'm not saying that right.
Kevin Burkhardt.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, he is good.
Fox playoff MLB playoff.
I can't pronounce his last name, but yeah, he is good. Charles Davis, then Pam Oliver.
Okay,
so that'll be the Fox crew,
second or third crew, probably.
And I've heard from people that tickets are crazy expensive.
Anytime the Cowboys, man.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, this is listing Buck just having 1 game this week. Maybe they're
just doing Thursday night.
They're just doing tonight. Good for them. He probably deserves a day off. But again, Joey, to put it in the simplest terms I can, you went out, if you're the Colts, 3-0 over the Cowboys, Giants, and then at Titans. All you need is a Steelers loss or a Ravens loss. The Ravens have the Bucks at the Chargers, home to the Bengals. Your Steelers have the Patriots at the Saints.
Yep.
Home to the Browns.
Home to the Bengals.
Home to the Bengals.
Yes.
Okay, so flip that. The Ravens have the Browns to end the season. The Steelers have the Bengals.
Yes.
To end the season. Obviously some tough games on that slate right there for both of those teams. So that's why, and the people at 538, the analytics site, I think it's like a 97% chance the Colts make the playoffs if they win out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
because that's 10-6.
That's 10-6, and you only need 1 loss. You would need Pittsburgh and Baltimore both to run the table for you not to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because it's just the weird scenario there of Pittsburgh currently leading the North right now. They could fall the wild card, and Baltimore would jump them and all of that. Because why are the odds that good? Because you have the head-to-head tiebreaker over Miami, who's also 7-6. And then if you won out, you would sweep the Titans in Week 17. So you'd obviously have the head-to-head tiebreaker over there, and Tennessee would no longer have as good of a record as you do. So honestly, the hardest part of this is just the Colts winning out, which
right.
2 or 3 weeks ago, we were like, you need so much help, and Baltimore losing and Pittsburgh losing last week, both of those games were huge. So basically 3-0, I think you're in. 2-1, as long as that loss is Sunday, because you'd rather lose the NFC game than the AFC game in Week 17. You will need some help to get in, but you're definitely not out with a loss, but you're going to need probably a good amount of help. 1-2, and we'll be talking, top 15, top 20 pick come January. So yeah, quickly the games to watch this weekend, Joey. It's Texans at Jets Saturday afternoon. I think the Texans can clinch the division with a win. They might need a little bit of help. Actually, now I think about it, they do need help because the Titans and the Colts are both 7-6. So Houston's magic number, I think, is 2 to clinch the division. The Bills are at the Ravens. No. The Bucks are at the Ravens. Excuse me. Bucks at Ravens. That's a 1:00 game. Titans at the Giants. Those are the streaking New York Giants. Dolphins at Vikings, who, God, they've had some turmoil this week. And then your Steelers will host the Patriots at 4:25.
Yes.
Boy, not a good time to play the Patriots.
Week 15 is always fun.
Yeah.
Because it's right before holidays, right before Christmas. Then you got the Saturday games.
I love the Saturday. And
Saturday's
how about the
great.
Thursday night game tonight?
Yeah. It's going to be awesome.
Think about it. If the Chiefs lose and the Chargers win, the Chiefs could be a wild card team.
Yeah, no.
Man, you imagine Patrick Mahomes and Andrew Luck as wild card quarterbacks?
Yeah, that would not be good for the 4 and 5, the 3 and 4.
Yeah, not good at all. So, yeah, a lot of scoreboard watching at Lucas Oil Stadium on Sunday.
Voice off between Mahomes and Luck. Now that's me personally. That's what I would want to see. Screw them being the wild card team. Just the two weirdest voices ever.
You need like an AFC Championship matchup where you sit them down, and Jim Nantz does the interview with them leading into the game.
Or do like what Ray Lewis and Michael Strahan did back in 2000, if you remember. Like sit them down.
Turn them back the clock.
Yeah. Before the Super Bowl, sit them down and have them play like a game of Madden against each other.
Yeah.
And then there's nobody else. It's just them and the cameras are rolling. That would be great. All right. We got the games to watch. Now let's get the keys to the Cowboys-Colts game.
Yeah. A couple things to note before I get into keys. Sounds like no Zach Martin. They're all pro right guard. The Indy native.
Indy boy, yeah.
Bishop Chatard, Notre Dame product. Hasn't missed a game in his NFL career. You know how much that sucks? Like if you were an Indy native, for example, like you're Ryan Kerrigan, I guess a Muncie kid, and you play in the NFC, you play in your hometown, quote unquote, one time every 8 years. So you pretty much have one chance, depending on how the schedule falls for you when you get drafted, to play in your hometown, and this will be the first game you've missed.
Well, at least you'll be able to be on the sideline, have some St. Elmo's the night before. Yeah. Enjoy it.
Yeah. 77 straight games for Zach Martin, but sound like they're going to rest him. And basically, Joey, it's not a lot at stake for Dallas. Yes, they still need a win to clinch the NFC East, but with how the Rams and Saints have pullen away from everyone, Dallas can't get home field past round 1. And they're in all likelihood, they're still going to win the division. It's such a dysfunctional division.
Don't let the Giants get hot. Watch out.
Now the Giants got the Odell injury to deal with. But yeah.
Is he out? Is he?
No, I saw he's seen like a specialist today for his quad injury, which that could impact the Colts next week as well. But yeah, so you see 8-5, 7-6 on the schedule, you think, wow, playoff implications are huge. Yes, for the Colts, not that much for Dallas. And then lastly, before I get into keys, there was a lot of talk this week about the Colts and their defense, and Matt Eberflus coming from that system where Rod Marinelli still is. How similar are those two schemes? Pretty much is Andrew Luck going to see the same defense schematically that he sees in practice every day? And Frank Reich was, no, he's not. The front is very similar. The 4-3 looks and the front is very similar. Dallas plays a lot more man coverage pass defense-wise than the Colts. That makes sense because Eberflus was their passing game coordinator last year. He comes to Indy to be the full-time defensive coordinator here. They hire Chris Richard from Seattle. Seattle certainly plays a lot of man or played a lot of man at that Legion of Boom. So now they've adopted that and used Byron Jones a little bit to do that. So a couple things I wanted to note before we got into keys to the game. First key, Joey, obviously is slow down the best running back in the NFL. Is he?
In the conversation.
Yeah. Without a doubt. Ezekiel Elliott leads the league in yards from scrimmage, leads the league in rushing. He accounts for 37% of their offense.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Dumps and screens.
Yes, a lot of catches. If you can hold him to 100, 125 total yards, I'd consider that a win. I think he accounts for it's 160, 170 per game, all-purpose yards. He was dealing with a little bit of a shoulder injury. He touched the ball the most he's ever touched it Sunday against the Eagles. So that's another thing to watch. If he gets nicked up early on, does Dallas say, hey, we don't need it. We don't need it as much as they need it. Let's pull out our guy that we have to make any run in January. Key number 2, no big plays for Amari Cooper. A lot of laughing about that trade when it happened, but Amari Cooper's been probably the biggest play receiver. Hilton's been more consistent, but Cooper has totally ignited things for Dallas. They've won 5 of 6, including the last 5 since trading for him. He's really been the big play guy. We saw it Sunday against the Eagles, some huge, huge touchdowns, and we'll see if the Colts can duplicate what they did against Hopkins. They did a really nice job against DeAndre Hopkins. We'll see. I mean, you feel like Amari Cooper's got to cool off at some point, but he's been one of the few mid-season trades you see in the NFL history that has really, really paid off. And then lastly, keep the sense of urgency going. I've said it several times now. The Colts have far more at stake than the Cowboys, and if you went out, you're going to be playing the month of January, and that should be the ultimate motivating factor for you in Week 15. And now it's just do it at home. You just won a game on the road. You're favored. The Colts are favored by, I think, 2.5 over Dallas. Now it's time to continue it at home and get those playoff odds getting closer to 50-50 by Week 17.
Will they get it done?
I think they do. Yeah, I do. 27-20. 27-23.
All right. I like that.
Maybe I'm putting too much stock into the whole sense of urgency thing, and I don't know. I just feel like the Colts are going to be slightly more motivated. Dallas's clinch hasn't occurred yet, but it really, really happened last week over Philly. And then Washington losing and the Giants, playing better as of late, but they are nowhere near close to 500 at 5-8. So I'll go with the Colts. I think that they had a nice blueprint against the Texans. I think we'll see similar game plan against the Cowboys. I will say this. Dallas's defense is extremely impressive. 27 points might be a little bit too much. I think they've only allowed over 24 once this year. That was against Tennessee on that Monday night game. They lost, and the Colts have scored over 24 6 or 7 times. So their front seven's got some playmakers, but I think the Colts get it done at home.
All right. Cool. Looking forward to it, man.
It'll be a big one Sunday afternoon. We'll have your coverage from Lucas Oil Stadium. It's K Bowen 1070 on Twitter.
K Bowen 1070 on Instagram too.
Correct. Yeah, Instagram Live at halftime. Thank you, Joey, for that. And if you guys haven't, please subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher, wherever we're at, and leave a review. Would greatly appreciate it. Check out our YouTube channel as well. It's 1070 The Fan over on YouTube. A lot of video content, not only from our shows, but also with some Colts updates as well. So he's Joey Molinaro. I'm Kevin Bowen. Thank you to our friends at Great Clips, and we will talk to you on Tuesday. This has been Kevin Bowen. Thank you for listening to another edition of Kevin's Corner. If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher for the best Colts and Pacers coverage.